Very good morning, children. Hope you are all doing good. Today, we are going to discuss the new topic of what is democracy? Why democracy? What is your understanding about democracy, children? What does it mean? We already know that the word democracy originated from a Greek word that means the rule of the people. This is the line with Abraham Lincoln's definition of democracy. Democracy is a rule of the people, by the people, and for the people. Democracy is nothing but people have the right to elect their own representative. The representative main role is to fulfill the basic needs of the people. The representative must work for the people and sort out their major problems and issues. So, democracy is a form of government where people has the power to choose their own representative. People are their own masters. The age limit of selecting the representative is above 18 years old. Every individual has a right to vote and choose their representative, the government. The selected representative will form the government and make the policies and programs on behalf of the people according to the powers and functions given by the Constitution. People also have the power to remove the representative if they are not functioning or administrating the government properly. I hope you all understood about what is meant by democracy. Okay, children, now we'll see the difference between democratic government and non-democratic government. The democratic government is elected by the people and the head of the country is elected for a fixed period of time. The head of the state in a non-democratic government is not the representative of the people, that is not elected by the people and may continue to remain in power for unspecified period of time. Democracy is based on the idea of deliberation and negotiation. As a result, democratic political systems take time in executing decisions. In a democratic government, citizens have the right to oppose policy and action made by the government. But in non-democratic government, no criticism of government or ruler tolerated. They cannot be, people doesn't have any right to criticize the government in the non-democratic government. While democratic government is a legitimate, responsible and accountable to the people. A non-democratic government is not accountable to the people. In a democratic government, people have the voting rights. One vote, one person, one value. But in a non-democratic government, no voting rights given to the citizen. Let me see the map of democratic and non-democratic countries. The light blue color shaded parts or regions are democratic republic countries. The red color shaded regions are absolute monarchies. Then that yellow color shaded regions are parliamentary monarchies. Okay, yes. Now, democratic countries, we can say the example of India, France, Canada. So, in democracy, leaders have to be elected by the people. Then only the leaders will serve the interest of the people. But in non-democratic country, if you take the example of Myanmar, where rulers were not elected by the people, those who were in charge of the army, the country took over as rulers. Dictators like Pinochet are not elected by the people. This also applies to monarchies. If we take the example of non-democratic countries, we can say China, Saudi Arabia, North Korea. We can see now the basic features of democracy. You all know the basic principle. Democracy means the rulers are elected by the people. When we describe this, we have four important components. What are they? Let me explain one by one. The first one is rulers. The second one is people. The third one is election. The fourth concept is government. The simple definition of democracy gives rise to various questions. What are they? Let me discuss now. Who are the rulers in this definition? What kind of election constitutes a democratic country? Who are the people who can elect the rulers or get elected as rulers? Finally, what form of government is a democracy? Let me explain about the first one. Before going to explain in detail, we see the main features of democracy. Rulers elected by the people. Major decision by elected leaders. Free and fair elections to be conducted. Election in regular intervals. One person, one vote, one value. Rule of law and respect of rights. So we have to abide the rules and regulations. If we follow all these conditions, then we can say that country is a true democratic country. Major decision by elected leader, the first concept of features of democracy. Who are the rulers in this definition? Yes. Are they really capable of ruling? All these people are really worth of ruling? We should remember that the rulers cannot do whatever he or she want to do. He has to do within the framework given by the people or the limits which are set by the constitution. For example, we can say Pakistan. Major decision by elected leaders. In Pakistan, General Pervez Musharraf led a military coup in October 1999. He overthrew the democratically elected government and went on to become the president of the country. In 2002, he also held a referendum in the country that granted him a 5-year extension. You may ask me a doubt, ma'am, what is mean by referendum? Yes, referendum is nothing but the direct vote, V-O-T-E, vote, in which an entire electorate is asked to either accept or reject a particular proposal. In the meanwhile, after passing of this legal framework order, elections were held to national and provincial assemblies. The elected representatives were granted some powers, but the final power rested with military officers, General Musharraf himself. Hence, we can conclude it was not a democratic country. The same thing happens in many dictatorships and monarchies. Thus, we can conclude that in a democracy, the final decision-making power must rest with those elected by the people. The second feature of democracy, free and fair electoral competition. When we are electing the leaders, the election should be in a free and fair manner. When we talk about election, there should not be any kind of pressure or force working on us. Let us take an example of Mexico. In Mexico, since its independence in 1930, it holds election every 6 years once. to elect their president. We can think that they have a true democracy because every fixed period of time they are conducting elections, right? But institutional revolutionary party always use force. The name of the party called Institutional Revolutionary Party always use force. Even the school teacher pressurized the parents to vote towards the particular party, and there was no free choice for the people to elect any other party. Once again, I'll repeat, the country has never been under military rule or dictator rule. But still, 2000, all election was won by a party called PRI, Institutional Revolutionary Party. Opposition parties did contest the elections but never win the election. The PRI used many dirty tricks to win the election. All those who employed in government offices had to attend his party meetings. Teachers of government schools forced parents to vote only for PRI party. Media ignored the activities of opposition parties except to criticize them. Sometimes the polling booths were also shifted from one place to another place in the last minutes, which made difficult to the people to cast their votes. The PRI spent a large sum of money in the campaign for its candidates. So, elections are not offering any true chance for them to elect. So, this type of election should not be conducted. This cannot be called as a democratic country. In a democratic country, people vote without any fear and threat to nominate their vote. One person, one vote, one value. Democracy is based on the fundamental principle of political equality. However, there are many instances of denial of the equal right to vote. In Fiji, the electoral system is such that the vote of an indigenous Fiji has more value than that of an Indian Fijian. Let me explain in detail. One person should be given one value. Example of Estonia. The people, those who are living in Estonia, where they are from the Russian minority people. It is very difficult for them to get this voting rights in Estonia. Similar case with Fiji. Fiji is a country in South American continent. In Fiji, if you have any Indian origins there, it is very difficult to nominate their vote. Only Fiji people will get right to vote. Until 2015, in Saudi Arabia, women did not have the right to vote. So it was very difficult to have one person, one value of vote. Definitely, these countries are not following a democratic government. The future of democracy says that each and every adult citizen must have one vote, and in turn each vote must have a one value too. Democracy is based on a fundamental principle of political equality. We already discussed these points. Once again, I'll repeat. A true democracy grants a citizen a right to vote, universal adult franchise. Each adult citizen must have one vote, and in turn each vote must have one value. The person who gets the maximum number of votes get elected in the election. Next is rule of law and respect for rights. the state should respect some basic rights of the citizens. People should free to think, to have opinion, to express their views in public, to form association, to protest. Everyone should be equal in the eyes of law. But that is, everybody will be equal in front of the law. Whether you are a rich or poor, higher caste or lower caste, rule is the rule for everyone. Rule of law and respect for rights. What form of government is a democracy? When we are electing a democratic government, where the leaders will start to do whatever he wants, that is not true democracy. Example, Zimbabwe. ZANU-PF party always contests for the election. Until now, only party victorious was Robert Mugabe party. But the media have been restricted severely. The televisions are pressurized not to telecast any negative implications about the ruling party. How can we say that this government is a genuine government? Government should work for the people. So many malpractice is also happening during elections in Zimbabwe. Rule of law. That is, everybody will be equal before the law. Whether you are a Muslim or a Hindu or a Christian, rich or poor, higher caste or lower caste, in front of law, everybody will be equal. Let me explain one more time in detail. Zimbabwe attained independence from white minority rule in 1980, and from then the country has been ruled by the party that led the freedom struggle, ZANU-PF, its leader. Robert Mugabe ruled the country since independence. Even if elections were held regularly, it was always won by ZANU-PF. President Mugabe was popular but also used unfair practices in elections. There was a law that limited the right to criticize the president. Television and radio were controlled by the government and gave only the ruling party's version. There were independent newspapers, but the government harassed those journalists who went against it, and so on. So it is not a democratic government. Democratic government rules within limits set by the constitutional law and citizens' right. Can we recap of the topic what we have learned today? Yes, one is what is democracy, the first concept. Second thing is the difference between the democratic and non-democratic government. The third concept is futures of democracy. Thank you, children.